Welcome back. You're watching Citizen Extra. As we told you this morning, Governor and MP aspirants across the country are presenting their nomination papers to the IEBC. We now cross over live to Kasarani, where Sam Ogina is standing by. Sam, what is the latest? And we can see Miguna, the independent candidate there. I think, did he or did he not present his papers? What is happening?
As we wait. Is that Miguna, an independent candidate, was here earlier before just to present his papers, but then again what happened is he's been told to go and have his signature actually converted. Mr. Miguna, probably if you have a minute with us. Mr. Miguna. Well, as you can see, that is Mr. Miguna walking away from us, furious. Reason being is because his signatures have, or rather he's been told to go and have his signatures rectified in a manner that is acceptable by the IEBC officials here. Reason being that he brought signatures in JPEG format, but IEBC want him to have the signatures actually converted in an easier way to be scrutinized, and that is in an Excel sheet. And of course that has not gone down well with Mr. Miguna. He was here before presenting his papers. Something else that is quite peculiar with Mr. Miguna, of course, vying as an independent candidate is, remember that he unveiled a University of Nairobi student as his running mate. But today when he appeared before the IEBC officials, of course, we saw that Miguna actually has changed his running mate to, and here he is. Here he is. Let's just speak to him. How are you, sir? Good morning.
All right.
Why are you so furious? Because we understand that IEBC has told you to have your signatures actually converted into an Excel format. Is that so?
Number one, that's not a requirement by law. That's number one. Number two, they had not said that before. They said they got called by their legal departments to require that that is done today. So I have told them I'm doing it right now. So nobody has blocked me. So the fake news that you guys keep on pumping Kenyans with, that Miguna has been blocked by the IEBC, that's completely false. I have more than 5,000 names, not the required 500, but you will never report that. Do you understand? Because your agenda is to promote the interest of the thieves, the crooks, and the drug dealers. You have been paid by the drug dealers to perpetuate the culture of impunity in Kenya.
With all due respect, yes, with all due respect, sir, we are not arguing.
I will answer your question.
Yes.
And I'm telling you now, your agenda will not succeed because you're working for crooks. And
well,
a time has come.
Mr. Miguna, with all due respect, sir, with all due respect, to you.
A time has come when the brown envelope journalism will come to an end. And I am here in Kenya to put it to an end. I am here to tell you that you will not sabotage Miguna. It will not work.
Well, no one is trying to actually sabotage your candidate out. But something else. Today we've seen you that you've changed your running mate. Why is that?
No. Listen, I have a choice to pick whoever I want as the running mate. And until I am fully compliant, you will be able to report who my running mate is. Peter Kenneth changed his running mate. Have you raised questions about that?
We will raise questions about him.
No, there is no need raising questions because he's allowed to choose his running mate. He chooses whoever he deems fit. And I'm allowed to choose my running mate when I want to choose my running mate.
Well, you have the freedom of choice, but why did you change?
No, I did not change my running mate. Today is the day for complying. And I am complying. So whoever the running mate have unveiled for Kenyans is the running mate. Do you understand? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Miguna, tough as he is, but well, that is his choice, as he says. Of course, flying all kinds of accusations and allegations on what we do, but that is his position. We will, of course, do what we do best and to the best of our capabilities. Of course, saying that he has a choice of changing his running mate. As I said earlier, he unveiled a University of Nairobi student as his running mate. Today we've seen a different person altogether as Miguna's running mate, and of course he says that he's going to comply with the directive that he has been given here today to make sure that the signatures are changed from the JPEG format to Excel sheet format. Of course, we expect the arrival of Elizabeth Ongoro to come here before the IEBC to be cleared. Of course, Ongoro contesting on an ANC ticket after she decamped from ODM. Of course, also later on, Nairobi Governor that is Dr. Evans Kidero, beg your pardon, will be coming here at around 11 just to go through the whole process as well, and also Mike Mbuvi Sonko. A total of 12 aspirants will be coming here before the IEBC today and tomorrow. Today actually 10 have been lined up to come before the IEBC, and then also something peculiar is in the list of IEBC aspirants who are going to come before the IEBC officials here today. We've seen the name of Kenneth Otiato Marende. Of course, we'll be waiting to hear from Marende if he shows up, because he has been lackluster about his candidature contesting for the Nairobi gubernatorial seat as it was. So right now I want to hand you over to the communication center. Over to you, Hussein Mohammed.
Right, Sam, before you leave, I mean, we've just seen you speak to Miguna, and you're saying he may, that is from what you read, he may have changed the name of his running mate. Is that what you're saying? Is that a fact?
It is a fact, Hussein, not even changing the name, but actually changing the running mate altogether. From the University of Nairobi student today, it was actually a lady. We still had to establish the name, but of course we will be doing that immediately after this one. He says actually it is his right, and today is the day of compliance, and he's doing that. He has a choice to make on who will be the best running mate for him for the Nairobi gubernatorial seat. Of course, going against Kidero, going against Sonko, going against Peter Kenneth. And of course we'll be waiting to see how this whole game pans out immediately after all these candidates, or rather all these aspirants, are cleared, when they are cleared, if they are cleared. And of course when all that happens, now it is the games to begin, essentially, Hussein.
Right, thank you so much. Samogina will be talking to you again shortly on Citizen Extra. Sam says Miguna has changed his running mate. Of course, we knew his running mate is James Gazungu. Miguna is saying, let's wait and see the name of the running mate after compliance. That is, after he presents his papers to the IEBC successfully. Right now, we cross over to Kirinyaga County, and Macharia Gashuru is standing by there. Macharia, what is the latest?
Very good morning to you, Hussein. We're coming to you live from St. Michael's School here in Kirinyaga County, and so far none of the 5 candidates here in Kirinyaga County has presented his or her papers to the IEBC. The IEBC commissioners here were expecting Kenya's Martha Karua at around 8, and she is yet to arrive. They're still waiting for her. After Martha Karua, they were expecting a guy by the name Mureithi Kagai, who is vying as in an independent candidate, and later on they will be expecting the incumbent, that is Joseph Ndathi, who is also vying as an independent candidate after he lost during the Jubilee nominations. Tomorrow they're expecting former devolution cabinet secretary Anne Waigoro, who is vying on a Jubilee ticket, and Maendeleo Chapchap Kennedy Macharia, who will be coming here later tomorrow. Now, so far, as it appears, none of the candidates is yet to present their papers. We're still waiting to see if Martha Karua will be coming to present her papers here at St. Michael's. But we understand the other candidates, that is the candidates who are vying for the parliamentary seats, are taking their papers to their respective constituency offices. That is the 4 constituencies in Kirinyaga County, Kirinyaga Central, Ndia, Moya, and of course Gishogo constituencies. So we'll be looking into who has presented the papers so far. But on the gubernatorial race, none of the candidates is yet to present his or her papers. Now, the 5 candidates will be battling it out in the August polls. Remember, this county has about 390 registered voters, so they'll be battling it out to see who takes over from the current leadership, or indeed Governor Joseph Ndathi will secure a second term, Hussein.
Right, thank you so much. Macharia Gishuru will be crossing over to him again shortly. A few kilometers from where Macharia is in Nyeri County, of course. We expect President Kenyatta to be headed there. You can see celebrations have already started, waiting for President Kenyatta to arrive and officially mark the 54th Madaraka Day celebrations. And we'll be crossing over to Nyeri shortly, where Francis Kashuri and Lulu Hassan are standing by. Right, now in studio, we have Gabriel Muduma, political analyst, joining us, and we have Brian Mutie, governance consultant, Ray Ochieng, governance analyst. Thank you so much again for being with us and for joining us. First, we're talking about this nomination exercise by IEBC. I want to look at a table that they posted yesterday, late yesterday. This is on the IEBC Twitter handle, that is on Twitter. And if we can have those graphics now on the screen. Talking about the number of cases currently, according to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. That is what IEBC was given by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. A list of total cases per elective seat submitted to it for vetting and enforcement of the leadership and integrity law. You can see there, for the presidents, those vying for presidency, none is being investigated, no pending cases, no convictions. Governor, 11 being investigated, 6 pending cases, 1 conviction. Senate, 1 being investigated, 2 pending cases, 1 conviction. MP, again, those are presented papers today, 2 being investigated, 1 pending case. Woman Rep 13, MCA 14. So we see governors 11 being investigated and MPs 2 being investigated. And interestingly, they post this just last night before the exercise kicks off today. Meaning, should we expect anything, Ray?
I've always had my view saying on this process that some of these things should have been done way before, because remember, the processes are a little bit very rigorous, and the candidates that we are talking about here, when you're talking about a gubernatorial candidate who's saying, these are people who have invested huge sums of both infrastructure in terms of monetary, physically, spiritually, and even financially. So at this point, to come and tell a governor that you're being investigated, then or even to think that some of them are saying you can even expunge them from being in contention, then some of them are saying can even be bringing this country into disarray. So in terms of, I remember, and I echo the word of Abdi Kadir, the MP and the advisor to the president, who kept on saying that sometimes, why must we do things the hard way as a nation? I think this is a dialogue that would have really come earlier. And if even the political parties as institutions would have been responsible enough, then even their vetting and a criteria and a framework through which they thrash the people who are going to be their candidates, saying, such that by the time they are forwarded to IEBC just does more of a secondary vetting, so that by the time we reach to a point whereby we have these people vying, saying we should not be having that. This is the time that we are trying to bar people. And you heard what Anwar Guru said. It ends up becoming political witch hunt, whether it is a fact that Gabriel may have been who is vying to be a governor. Right now we are saying that, you see what, because of some integrity issues, we are thinking that he should not vie. So saying us as a political economy, whether this would be the right thing to do at this point, we'll interpret it with political lenses, and definitely it will not be good for the process. So my firm position, I've always advised, then we need to have a dialogue in the next general elections. This rigorous process of examining and funneling candidates has to come up far much earlier. So, from what you're saying, then it shouldn't happen now. It shouldn't happen, and we are not going to expect much. And for a fact, you're not going to see anybody being bad.
Right?
Yeah. Thank you, Sen. First of all, is to wish all Kenyans of goodwill, happy, Madaraka Day, as they commemorate the day that we attained self-rule. However, by just going back to the topic of the day, I think it will be prudent if we examine this thing with a lot of sobriety. I do believe that we are in the process of actually installing men and women of, valor into places of, or into positions of power. And as a country, those people have to be accountable, and we have to see it, or to ensure that to the best of our understanding as a country, that these are the men and women who will be governing, or governing our resources. And by virtue of that, I think we have chapter 6, which actually guides us as a country on the kind of criteria that we have to apply as we select these men, or as we elect them. And by going to what Ray has said, it's important that we also look at it through the political lens. Politics is part and parcel of our development agenda as a country, and we cannot run away from that. And again, as we look into the worldwide indicators of good governance, I as a consultant, I would want to pick transparency and accountability, and also the issue of rule of law as some of the key tenets that should act as key guiding principles as we do try to apply this kind of criteria in selecting these men and women. Today marks a very significant day, especially in the race for gubernatorial seats and other positions also. And the big question that we do need to ask ourselves is the workings of the Chapter 6 working group, which has come in, in the fore, in ensuring that it will try to sieve these men and women into a situation where we are going to find the suitable candidates being given the nod to go ahead and become, occupiers of those positions. But the biggest question that we need to ask ourselves, are they really men and women of integrity? Are they really qualified to be called men and women of integrity?
And if they are not, should they be stopped now?
Absolutely. I think as far as I'm concerned, we are really putting a lot of pressure on the IEBC as an institution, because you can understand, Hussein, where we are coming from as a nation, that we had some laws which were not actually in place in good time. And I think that's the time that when we also put our house in order to ensure that at least we have systems, mechanisms that are able to sieve these men and women into a situation where we are getting the right candidate. But because of the nature of the process that we are coming from, we were not able to give this institution ample time, prepare adequately, put Chapter 6 working group into perspective, ensuring that they deliver in that platform. But as of now, I can say we have not yet got it right.
Okay, Gabriel?
Thank you, Hussein. And in my view, I think I'll look at two periods. Now, the period before the primary and the period after primary. And to a large extent, I'll agree with Ray. And very clearly, Ray and myself, we've been very consistent as to when, and this I'm talking about the issue of the timing, as to when this should take place. IEBC, I feel, again on my view, Hussein, it's as if they are giving themselves too much work. They are actually pressuring themselves into going to this vetting process. This is a multi-agency kind of vetting process, and what I would expect from IEBC is for them to allow the key institutions that have been mandated by law to vetting people to do that just job, and then their work would be to verify the document.
They actually did that, because there was this multi-agency made up of IBC, SEC, Attorney General, DPP, DCI, and we gathered that there was a report handed over to IBC, which we don't know what the report said, just before the nomination exercise began. That's last week on Thursday.
And you see, that's why I'm saying there are two periods. There's a period before the primaries. All these things should actually be given to a candidate, all right, before they actually present themselves for the primaries.
True.
After the primaries, I think you've already gone in too deep and in too far. Somebody has already put a lot of resources out there. They've gone through, and we saw the party primaries, how they were. We saw candidates coming here, Hussein, and they were talking about the monetary aspect that they had spent, which is quite gigantic. So I think those two periods really define and determine how this process should go on. The period I'm talking about now after the primaries, like what we've seen with an aspirant, with the woman rep aspirant from Baringo, who was found forging signatures. This is after the primaries. Now, that I think the law can take, itself, because from what I understand, she's already been arrested by the investigating arms, and we do not know what will happen. But if you are to bar such a person who has already gone through primaries and has been caught doing an electoral vice, then that's something else. But barring somebody after the primaries, you know, just because there was an allegation before, I think it should have been handled better. And I think the multi-agency that I'm talking about, they need to do a good job. Once you have cleared somebody to run for the primaries, that should be it, because you know the risk we run into going to saying it will be institutional rigging. Look at it this way.
Sure.
Imagine what we saw if we were following the issues of the governors, some of the governors, somebody like Mike Mbuvi Sonko, somebody like Evans Kidero, somebody like Anoi Guru. They came out very clearly with guns blazing almost to tell you, you know, about the rigorous primaries that they've gone through, and the people who have actually elected them, they are going to look at it as institutional rigging.
Okay. Then how do you propose this issue of integrity ever being implemented?
Hussein, how this can be implemented, and maybe an advisory that I would give into the future then, is then to institutionalize this body so that it is not more of a secretariat. A very independent body that way before, because Hussein, some of us, we have applied for public sector jobs, and the processes that even they do in their indents in the newspapers are very clear in terms of Higher Education Loans Board needs to clear you, Credit Reference Bureau has to clear you, you must have a certificate of good conduct, and Hussein, for you to go through all those processes, you finish them even before applying for the job, you get relieved that at least there is a background check that has been done on me. And to crystallize what Gabriel is saying, that I like Brian went a long way but finally agreed, is in terms of, look at even what the political parties, the primaries are funded by the taxpayer. And you heard what political parties were saying, that even they do not even have enough funding, Hussein. So look at this case whereby political parties have gone through the primaries whereby they have paid tooth and nail. And then they have churned out their candidates, and they've said our candidate is X and Y. Then after they have done that, Hussein, you want to say now X and Y, we want to check whether they are really meeting the threshold of what we really believe. So in terms of operationalizing chapter 6, which as at now I really think we deleted from our constitution.
Yes,
so after the elections, we need to have a dialogue to introduce chapter 6 again into our...
Absolutely, I do agree with you, Ray, when it comes to, you know, relooking at chapter 6, and not only chapter 6 entirely, but also the whole constitution. The whole dispensation actually has some gaps that need to be re-examined. It's a guiding framework for us as a country in which we have the honors of implementing it, and the implementers as citizen class, we cannot just sit down and watch as you know, things go wrong. We have an obligation to put the system at task, or in terms of interrogating its workability. And I want to pinpoint the national values that we hold as a country, which are very key because they give the face of the country and they give the structure in which we need to be looked into. And again, when you look at when you hear somebody, you know, on a national television using the F word, even in front of a camera, I think it sends a lot of shivers in me as a governance expert, in the sense that I have a responsibility, and I feel that as a citizen of this country, I feel that I need to put my input in terms of advisory in the way that we need to look at issues from the systems, from the laws and the framework that we do operate as a country, and see how we can bar people who are seemed to be not in tandem with the lines, the principles, chapter 6, and see how we can actually restrict that narrow path into a situation where we can only get the best candidates out of the situation. As of now, it's a shambolic situation. It's a free-for-all. In fact, whoever has who pays the piper sings the tune. How do you put it, Mutuma? I hope that's how to put it.
Gabriel has a good one.
No, you see,
he can help you.
Before Mutia runs away with it, I think you're mixing two things up. Now there's the moral aspect and then the legal issue. If somebody comes out and, you know, really curses on live TV, I don't think there's really somewhere far you can take them. I mean, cursing is not sin, it's not a crime. No, that's a moral issue. If you're talking about credibility, I mean, look at it this way. Trump is the president president, what was he saying? Was he not the same guy caught on camera groping women and saying, you know, touching them by you can't even repeat that on TV. But what I'm saying is that's a moral issue which somebody can deal with it individually. But when it comes to the legal aspect, I'm with you there, Mutia. If you're talking about somebody's credibility, still in corruption, what have you presenting fake academic papers who's saying there, I'm with Mutia 110%. That's the credibility we should be talking about. But again, the morality sphere, I mean, if it's really stinging you too much, go down to the people. If they like what this man is saying, if he's, you know, cussing everybody from here to hell and back,
Mutuma, you're forgetting that whoever you elect into a position of power, that's the representative that you want to take as the face of that constituent body. And for example, if you elect such a person who can use the F word, forget about you know, the issues of morality and all that. This is a matter of integrity. This is the face of the person you want to represent you on a national platform.
Brian, it's a moral. It's a moral. That's what I'm saying. It's a moral.
It doesn't matter.
But you know, it's a moral issue versus credibility. Credibility, I support you. But somebody cutting, when you're saying they can't be elected, the person who is going to elect them has integrity.
Right, that's the question, which was, how can this issue of integrity ever be implemented?
Absolutely.
Now, Muduma.
Well, you see, the number one thing we agree, Hussein, with this one, and really I'm of no divergent views from what Brian is saying, is credibility must take the honors of the day. I agree. You know, if somebody is caught, you know, in matters of corruption, somebody, you know, has not actually lived up to the integral standard of what is being asked, and this is why we are talking about chapter 6, then they must be dealt with severely and to an extent where they should not be allowed to run for office. But then again, the timing on this issue is wrong. We should have done this a long time ago. Ray has actually put it very clear. When you go to a private, you know, if you're looking for a job, there is that mandate. There are so many caps done in. They have to check your academic transcripts. They have to, you know, you have to get a certificate of good conduct. You must do all these things which are necessary before you are able to even, before you're even allowed to come for the initial interview. So this is what I'm saying. All this should have been done a long time ago. Somebody has a certificate of good conduct. Somebody has the academic and the institution, by the way, they've not come to nullify that. They've gone through EACC. They've been cleared. And then all of a sudden, you're telling them they cannot move forward. I think the credibility issue, it matters, yes, but the timing could be wrong.
We seem to be mixing issues here. And I want to bring my brother into speed when it comes to chapter 6 of the Constitution, which I do have it with me here. And I want to read for him Article 73 of the Constitution.
Read the good book.
Sabbatical 3. Wait a minute, Ray. Yes. Listen to this one. He seems to be glorifying, you know, the issue of using the F word on a national TV. He seems to, you know, say that morality has no place in terms of integrity. That's not what I'm saying. Listen to this, Mutuma. Sabbatical 2 says that these are responsibilities of leadership. Authority assigned to a state officer is a public trust to be executed in a manner that 2. Demonstrates respect for the people. 3. Brings honor to the nation and dignity to the office, and promotes public confidence in the integrity of that particular office. Now, Mutuma, these are take home for you. If somebody uses an F word, you say that's the moral aspect of it, and you have no problem with it. But again, it boils down to the issue of integrity. It boils down to the issues of bringing honor to the nation. It boils down to ensuring that you make sure that people are happy and do not feel that they are dishonored by your sentiments. So that also is part of credibility and integrity.
Hussein, may I just answer back on that one? What I'm telling you is this: I am not disagreeing on the moral aspect. What I'm talking about is we should not confuse the two, because to me the larger one has to deal with credibility. The morality sphere. The morality sphere.
But there's no lesser evil.
You see, the morality sphere is the person who is a voter gets to decide. On the credibility, it's institutions that get to decide. People versus institutions. And I hope Ray is getting me right on this one, because that's what I'm saying. People don't seem to get concerned. No, I'm not seeking sympathy. But what I'm saying is people get to decide when it comes down to the moral aspect. Look what they did. Did the person who was caught cussing was he not overwhelmingly elected?
Let me
the people, somebody like the governor, was he not?
Isn't it still demeaning to the office that he seeks?
It could be. Hussein, it could be, and I agree with you. But in this case, the people get to decide. They are the moral gatekeepers.
Before this person is cleared by the institutions we are talking about, before this person is cleared by the institutions we are talking about, before he meets the people, he has to be cleared by these institutions.
So
what you subject people to choose between morality and whatever you are calling, I don't know what is the other aspect you are basing your argument on, but before this person is subjected to be elected by the people, he has to go through the threshold of that institution. He has to be cleared or not. And if
what you're saying, what you're saying, whether he will be shot, but whether it's legal or moral, that's what Muduma is talking about.
Exactly.
But the question is, you can see live pictures now in Nyeri, Raila Odinga talking to National Police Service Commission Chair Johnson Kavuludi, because the NASA principals are attending this event in Nyeri County. We'll be crossing over there shortly and talk to Francisco Shuri. But on this matter, as we wind up on this matter, Brian, what you're saying is, you're saying we should see IEBC barring some candidates.
Exactly.
Now,
yes. What I'm saying,
it should happen now.
It should happen now, and it should also have happened before. But the point I'm driving to Mutuma is that he seems to tell us that we should apply Chapter 6 selectively. That you can fit, you can qualify, or you can fit in one of the sabbaticals. And if you fail in the other, you can still get the nod to go ahead.
We don't want to continue with that argument. I think you guys will keep on doing this even after this. It's a matter of interpretation of the law.
Sure.
But what you're saying, basically, Mutia, is that we should see IEBC barring some candidates or aspirants now.
No, it should
be now.
It should be now.
It should be now.
You know, we have been
in this exercise of nomination when they present the nomination papers.
Exactly.
Muduma, you're saying it should not have happened now. It shouldn't happen now. Ray also saying the same.
It should have happened long time ago.
Exactly.
It shouldn't have happened now. It shouldn't happen now.
Yes.
Why? What is the difference?
The difference is just saying the way we were highlighted. Then it would end up, we are in a political economy, saying in terms of the process to procure these candidates, both emotionally, institutionally, then may even leave a gap that puts us in a big crisis than we've never been before. Then again, we've also raised in terms of what's the competence of the IEBC. Remember, right now to bar a candidate, remember the IEBC do not have a standalone mandate to actually just say, because there has to be evidence. And when you're talking about evidence, you're saying you have to bring the DPP, you have to bring the judiciary. It's a whole ball game of process. And remember, how many months
and they did.
And how
there was that team.
There was that team, and that's what we are saying in terms of saying. To me, count it. It's too little and it's too late. And even if at all, Brian, hold a moment.
All right.
Even if at all it will go through and we'll have candidates, they'll still come out and say this is a political process. Correct. Because where are those evidences? And we're saying, if the evidences were there, what we are saying with Gabriel, then why did these evidences be presented much earlier? So that's whereby, if at all what Brian is talking about Chapter 6, and in one area whereby maybe I
would tend to think one of the reasons why this wasn't done much earlier, you're talking about months before, years before, whichever,
and Hussein, you
is that we did not know who exactly is vying.
Hussein,
now we do.
But now we do. But in terms of, we had already known, and that's why what you were saying, you asked us a very critical question. Then what next? And that's why we said, to institutionalize Chapter 6, we should even go to a point whereby if you know in the coming general election you're going to be vying for an elective position, then these are the procedures, so that by the time that I'm even vetted before I even become that big candidate in that political process. Because we say it's a fact. The practicals are, some of these people you cannot bar them at this time.
Okay.
How do we know? We are talking about
let me answer on that particular one, the one that is finishing with. He has talked about the issues of the Chapter 6, but I want to tell him that Ray, you are pretty aware of the workings of Chapter 6. I mean, Chapter 6 working group.
group, yeah.
This comprises of the EACC, the DPP, and other organs that work in line with ensuring that they assist IEBC to sieve or to be able to interrogate the background checks of the candidates before they are cleared. And this working team or working group works together in a way that they are able to have a recommendation as in terms of a report and a recommendation for particular candidates, which they present now to the IEBC to use as a tool that will knock or not knock somebody to proceed in terms of clearance. Now, this is the time that we should be seeing those recommendations, having done those background checks of these characters we are talking about, and this being the opportunity now for IEBC to present the evidences that have been collected prior to this presentation and be able to subject that to the candidate and tell them, look, these are the findings that have been brought against you through Chapter 6 working group, and we are not going to let you proceed in terms of clearance. And that should be the ideal situation. But when you talk
that should be the ideal.
Gentlemen, very briefly, first we have to cross over to Nyeri County. We gather that President Uhuru Kenyatta is now making his way. Of course, Francis Gashuri and Lulu Hassan are reporters there. Gashuri.
Hussein Mohammed, once again, good morning. And as I told you earlier, the program proper is now formally kicking off. The arrival of several dignitaries here. President Uhuru Kenyatta expected shortly. With me here is the program, and it indicates that President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected here at about 10:55 a.m. That's in a short while, and the program kicking off real fast and quick. On the other hand, Maroon Commandos belting some favorite tunes like that song that is on air now, Hussein. I'm sure it's one of the songs that you never liked when you were in school. But be it as it may, several leaders are also here. Lulu Hassan has also gone to the other side to try and fetch some leaders who are here. Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, as we indicated earlier, has also made his way into the grounds here at Kabiroini Showground to participate in this year's Madaraka Day celebration. And various ministers are also here. We'll also try and sample views from them. And basically, the situation remains very calm. I can see a lot of niceties being exchanged between leaders from across the political divide, and basically this shows that the leaders are able to speak to each other and with each other, even as we wait for a very heated political season. We will try and get former Prime Minister Raila Odinga to come and speak to us shortly, just to get his views about the whole celebration and how he thinks basically the government has been able to deal with some of the issues that it is dealing with. And we expect that President Uhuru Kenyatta in his speech will focus or dwell more on what he thinks his government has been able to achieve in the 4.5 years that he has been in power. And the top of it, remember yesterday, the launch of the SGR from Mombasa to Nairobi are definitely most likely going to feature in his speech very prominently. And saying the leaders are we don't know exactly whether former Prime Minister Raila Odinga will get an opportunity to speak here during the celebration. But some of the people who are managing the program here tell us it will be at the discretion of the President and the Deputy President to see whether they are able to give him an opportunity just to say hi to the people who are here in Nyeri at the Kabiroini Showground. And as soon as we are able to do that, I will be able to give you an opportunity to hear what he has to say. And also sample views from some of the leaders who are here who say, so when you get another opportunity, please come back to us and be able to sample views from some of the leaders who are here at the Kabiroini Showground in Nyeri County.
Right, Francis Gashuri live from Nyeri County. Will be crossing over again there shortly. Back to our guest in studio now, Ray Ochieng, a governance analyst, governance consultant, Brian Mutia, and Gabriel Muduma, who is a political analyst. The information we're getting now is that Alfred Mutua has been cleared to vie, and so has Ferdinand Waititu. Muduma, you are responding to Brian.
we go back to my major issue with IEBC really, and what I was saying, Hussein, is I do not think at this point IEBC really needs to pressure themselves into going again deep core into matters vetting. What probably I would suggest is to do what they are doing currently, to just vet the documents, and if that, you know, verifying of documents, if that can go very quickly, then I mean I think this process will be over and done with. You've just seen what our good friend Muguna was trying to say. There were no clear directives as to, you know, what file may come in, whether it's a JPEG format or whether it's an XL. I think there were some of a few things which could have actually come earlier. Hussein, you asked a question why this issue could not have been done earlier is because we did not know who was vying.
Yeah.
But Hussein, don't forget there is a standing legal order. For instance, if Mutia was caught in 2013 or 2010 with credibility and issues that were to do with him, you know, being taken to court and things happened and he was convicted, you know, there is that legal standing order whereby Mutia cannot and should never be allowed to hold a public anywhere in the public office. You know, those are legal standing issues which must suffice and should actually be put into place, so that you know, anytime Brian wants to go for an elective seat, he already has a legal issue that he cannot be allowed, and no party, whether independent or any party allowing him to run, they are doing that at their own peril. So that should be very clear.
Let me remind Mutuma there is something we call due process. Rule of law is one of the key tenets of good governance. And when somebody is barred by the IEBC because of integrity issues, he ought to be given a leeway to be listened through the so-called due process. And that mechanism is in place, and the law is very clear about you cannot bar somebody because he's just been mentioned adversely because of one or two issues. The law is very clear that he has to be, the case has to be determined and the person absolved or, you know, convicted. But I also want to delve on the issue of integrity, which again boils down to the issues of the leaders that we want to put in place. Hussein will agree with me that IEBC, for the time being, is only clearing people based on the documents that they present in terms of the education process. But when it comes to the background checks that people ought to be examined through, there should be a system where, apart from the documents, the academics and all that, there should be also the integrity aspect being examined. But they are not doing that because of the atmosphere, the political atmosphere in which they are operating. For example, if Sonko comes there with his battery of supporters or thousands of supporters, and the IEBC tells him that is not going to be cleared because of integrity issues, definitely you expect chaotic situation in the offices of IEBC. And therefore, to manage those expectations, to manage the situation, IEBC has to play it safe, but they know that they ought to have background checks attached to all the candidates that are presenting their papers today.
So Brian, you are admitting in terms of the practicality
that's
of
an
the
ideal situation.
And you see, you are just trying to be mischievous before, which is okay to be mischievous, but I think you are now coming to light that in terms of what you were saying, that if we are to and you really placed a high premium on chapter 6, and remember your debate with Gabriel, whereby you're talking about even the ethical issues and even bringing dignity and honor to the office, which is a very high mandate. So even if at all you had that, what we could ask you that, Brad, if only you had to use that window, to be the main optics of making sure that who is going to run, then you are telling us that almost 3/4 of these people that we are seeing are not going to be on the ballot, and you know that is going to be a crisis. So thank you for owning up.
Okay. In fact, I'm liking it. I'm liking what he says, Hussein, that at the end of the day, the law must be exhausted.
Absolutely.
And you know, that's the truth. That's why now I think you're now playing well.
If you listen to me, Mutuma, before, if you could have listened,
you are arguing the people should be bad.
No, I said this background check should have been done before.
And anyway, very quickly, Hussein, we agree that the Constitution is the one that, you know, reigns supreme. And if that being the case, it is very clear that all people are presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Now, beautiful.
Okay, finally, your final comment, that is.
Okay, you've got me unawares, Hussein, on that. I wanted to...
You wanted to say...
Use that as your final comment, sort of thing.
All right, thank you so much. Hussein, I think this is a political process and the atmosphere is very ripe for us to expect anything going wrong, but because IEBC knows the situation, IEBC knows that they are operating through a very rigid, how do you call it, not a friendly situation, so to speak, but because they know that the leaders who are coming there have a lot of baggage from their people and the expectations are very high, and therefore they are going to clear the men and the women who are going to be eventually on the ballot. But having said that, we have to ensure that our systems are in place prior to such an exercise. We have to get it right from the word go. But it doesn't also pain us as a citizen class to sit down and evaluate how better we can, better our ways of doing things. How better do we see these people? How do we ensure that the people who are going to occupy this seat are